Tracking, sometimes referred to as ability grouping, is the concept of organizing student placement based on their academic abilities. This practice can be done within classes, or between schools. When tracked, students are placed in homogeneous groups, meaning that all of the children in a given placement have similar perceived academic ability levels. Since tracking has been a part of public schools in the United States for many years, this concept has got some supportive backing. One reason that individuals support tracking is because it allows for a more targeted instruction for student needs, providing challenges for higher performing students and giving lower performing students the time and assistance that they need. Typically, parents of a higher performing student are more in favor of tracking because their child is being increasingly advanced and successful in school. On the other hand, many people are opposed to tracking in our schools for a variety of reasons. Dr. Jeannie Oakes of the Ford Foundation explains her views against tracking students.
Well, when you look empirically at the characteristics of children in classrooms, children are extraordinarily diverse in all sorts of ways. And if you group them on one characteristic, you're going to have a huge amount of diversity and variation on other characteristics. So first of all, we fool ourselves into thinking that we've got homogeneous groups of students.
Opposers of educational tracking address issues such as segregation and expectations within this practice. As Beth Rubin explains, students in different tracks do not receive the same quality of education, and curriculum, teaching, and social interactions in the classroom lead to a lack of motivation and success for those lower achieving students. Marianne Modica states that academic tracking allows racially mixed schools to maintain segregated classrooms. This inequality is occurring because often a lower performing student is coming from a disadvantaged background, such as poverty or racial minority. Tracking impacts all populations of students that attend a school which practices this method of grouping students, just in various ways. Unfortunately, inequalities in the practice of educational tracking are very common and obvious in today's public schools. Rubin noted that the correspondence between school tracking and structural inequalities found in the larger society has been well documented. African American, Latino, and low-income children of all ethnicities are overrepresented in low tracks and vocational programs. Modica explains how tracking creates physical and social boundaries among students of differing racial backgrounds who attend racially diverse schools. Social backgrounds can greatly hinder a child's social-emotional well-being and ability to make peer connections, and in turn affect his or her ability to do well in school. I was drawn to the topic of tracking because I experienced this during my time in high school. In my experience, it was extremely apparent to all students what track someone was on based on the classes and activities that they participated in. Looking back on this experience with my new knowledge, having everyone be aware if you were on a lower track was undoubtedly quite embarrassing and unmotivating for those students. In order to address the inequalities surrounding educational tracking, I would attempt multiple changes to the current system. First, to ensure there is no bias, unconscious or otherwise, in student placement decisions, I would suggest that there be a team of people making this choice rather than one individual. Also, I believe that tracking should not take place when a child first enters school, but rather after a set amount of instruction has been presented to ensure that all students have similar background knowledge prior to an examination. Lastly, I do not think it is appropriate for a student to be in classes with only his or her track for the entire day, every day, but it should vary from tracked to mixed classes to ensure diversity. The critical issue of tracking students has taught me that there can be benefits and problems with both homogeneous and heterogeneous grouping. This research has increased my understanding that students are so much more than simply a grade on an academic task. As a future educator, I will use the knowledge that I have gained about tracking to guide how I form in-class groups to ensure equality and to help me to advocate for my students if the school I am teaching at is using tracking practices.